Hey guys, William Murfitt here. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. In today's episode, I'll be stripping down a rear subframe that I've been given by a friend. Their car is currently in the body shop getting some work, and while it's there, I wanted to give the rear subframe an overhaul. So, I've actually got the best job because today all I'm doing is removing the radius arms, removing any brake lines or handbrake cables and stuff like that from the subframe. This is going to get handed back to the body shop, who's going to sandblast it, powder coat it, and bring it back to me. I'll rebuild it back up, and then can go back on the car. So yeah, should be quite a fun one today. I'm going to try and take it nice and slow, try and talk you guys through the process, and hopefully we can all learn something about this. So let's get stuck into it. Right, so here it is. This garage is an absolute mess once again. I managed to get rid of some stuff, and then more stuff kind of appears, and yeah. So I've cleared this space. I'm going to move the Mini across and back to the garage, so there's a walkway down the side, and then I can have this area here to work in. So we're going to be removing these rear radius arms, shock absorbers, the rubber cones, the trumpets, the knuckle joints, the old exhaust hangers, the trunnions from the top, handbrake cables from down here, brake lines, exhaust mounts, and just make it to a bare subframe. There is a bit of damage to the middle, which hopefully you can kind of tell there. I'm going to try and straighten that out. It doesn't seem to be any damage that I can see. However, I have just noticed as I'm looking around this, just down here, there's a tiny bit of the metal flaking. So I'm going to have a little dig around at that, because there's no point going through the whole process of getting this shot blasted and powder coated if that rot is just going to sort of break through. So yeah, today we're going to shuffle this down, but first my little Mini needs to move. So, I have filmed this entire video with the microphone disconnected, which is truly frustrating. So, what I've got to do now is play the video and do a voiceover. Now, I've tried this previously and I actually find it really difficult. So, hats off to Classic Mini Workshop, because I find it so hard. So yeah, I'm going to have to do that. So you may see you popping up every now and again to fill in the blanks. So let's have a look at what parts we've got for this rebuild. Okay, so as you'll see, this is happening after the event. So the radius arms are both off, but we're going to look at what parts we need for this build. So I've ordered quite a few bits and pieces, and I've got some bits and pieces that I got from the show. So at Bingley I got 2 rear radius arm pins. Now they go across the radius arm, so I've got one for each side. As well as the radius arm kits at Bingley, I picked up a rear subframe rebuild kit. Now these kits don't seem to exist anymore, so what I've got is a kit that's been made up of various bits and pieces and parts. So I've got trunnions, or trunnion pins, and I've also got the trunnion bushes. That's for the latest style rear subframe. I've also got a rear subframe fitting kit. So that's the bolts that hold the subframe onto the body. So I've got 4 at the front, and I've got some washers, which are going to be for the pins, and I've got 2 packs of nuts for the pins, front and rear. I've got the other one's gone. So I've also got a pair of rear knuckles. They are for the suspension that goes into these cups back here. With them fitted, I'm going to fit high-lows, so I've got some high-lows somewhere in my stock of stuff, and I'm going to fit new cones as well. I've got some brake backplate fitting kits, so they're going to go onto the back of the drums and hold the backplate onto the radius arm. I've got 2 packs of brake pipe fitting kits as well. And I've also got a complete rear subframe brake pipe kit. So that's from the union across to the left hand radius arm to the flexi hose, and then from the union to the right hand and then to the flexi hose. So there's 4 pipes in there, and that's really handy. There's my other 2 nuts. I'm just missing now this other pack of flexi hoses. So I'm just waiting for the rear flexi hoses to arrive. So these are going to replace these old tatty broken ones. And then I can start working on it really. So what I'm going to do is strip down all of this dirt and grime off of these radius arms. I'm going to remove the pin, and then I'm going to put these new pins in. I'm just going to replace all the brake pipes, bushings for the suspension. I'm probably going to fit these shock absorbers because they're in slightly better condition on the bushes than the ones that are already on there. Clean up all the back plates. I'm probably going to get the back plates blasted and powder coated, or blasted and clean on myself. Replace the bolts obviously, get this handbrake bracket done as well, and just give it a complete overhaul all around. Do that both sides, new fresh paint, and we are on to what I like to call a winner. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So to keep everything together, just got a box. I'm going to put everything in. So that is going to be for this particular application. There's going to probably be a few more parts along the way, but that's pretty much going to be the entirety of the radius arms. When the drums are off, I'm going to look at maybe replacing the brake pads or the brake shoes, see what the wheel cylinders are like, and if needs be, that can be overhauled as well. I'm pretty sure that we did these recently. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think they're going to be okay. So yeah, let's get to the action. Hey mini enthusiasts, how you doing? So this is the subframe as you see it on the car. There's going to be 2 bolts either side on the back in this rear trunnion, and there's also at the front 2 bolts in the front either side going into the hill board. With them all off, that then obviously releases the subframe, and then I can start looking into releasing the radius arms. So I'm going to start off using the 1/2 inch socket on the bottom. So there's 2 bolts holding the radius arm bracket on. They're normally a bit of a pig to get out because they seem to see a lot of the road grime. And then inside where it actually mounts to the sort of where the hill board normally is, there's 2 more bolts there. On this side here there's already one removed, and I've just hit it with a hammer a little bit just to try and sort of free up a lot of the rust and grime, and spray it with some WD-40 as well, and that seems to sort of get it loose quite easily. Next up is the radius arm pin. So I've undone the bolt from the inside of the subframe, and that seemed to come off quite easily. Stupidly, I didn't take off any of the braking side of it before I started stripping it down, so I'm just taking off the handbrake clevis pin there, and the actual cable just comes off if you pinch the spring and release it out onto the handbrake quadrant. So in this on the car, I adjusted all, or taken off this first of all, including that brake flexi hose. So on the top side of the radius arm, we've got this a second split pin with a clevis pin there, and that holds on the quadrant. Undo the split pin, and that can just push out the clip. The flexi hose is a bit of a pig to undo, so just cut it off. And that's the first arm off. So this section here of the subframe is probably where it gets worse attacked with the rust, because that's where all the road grime sits. So one side is out, the brake pipe's off. This is really hard trying to narrate this. Onto the quadrant now, release that. They tend to pinch together, so just using a screwdriver in between just to spread them like lips. And yeah, when you put the cable back together, you just give it a quick crimp up with a pair of pliers, that comes off. So to undo these bolts, this is the nut for the trunnion, and it was actually quite tight, so just working it back and forth to try and clean up the threads, and that seemed to come and work a treat. So yeah, I got it all undone, but I found it really hard to try and get the end off, so tried tapping it with a hammer to start with. That didn't work, and then found some big pipe grips and actually turned the end of that trunnion until it was rotated enough to be able to sort of work it free, and that came out lovely. Now onto the back, same again, bit of back and forth motions to try and get that nut free. Once the subframe's back, I'm just going to run a tap down it and just clean the threads up, and it should all be good. The broken bolt on this end, if you noticed that previously, that just sort of tapped out. That was quite good. And the bushes, they all pop out nicely as well, quite worn, so they're due a renewal. Just removing the rear exhaust hanger and the front exhaust hanger, and then finishing off just by removing the other side of the brake pipe. And that's pretty much one side complete. So move on to the second side now. Trying to go for the correct approach of removing the brake lines first, and once the brake parts are released, then can release the handbrake. I did have a bit of an issue this side with undoing the bolts that go through the subframe into where the heel board obviously is, because the radius arm was actually touching it. So I had modified a socket, but I just couldn't find it anywhere. So I'm having a bit of an issue there. I tried to remove the end nut, trying to sort of lever it out and all sorts, but eventually managed to bite on a socket, and that came out lovely. Handbrake quadrant off, radius arm off, handbrake cable off, just tapping out the cone, front and rear trunnions, and then we are done. Apart from that flexi hose, that needs to come off as well. Okay, so with the rear subframe now stripped, I need to turn my attention to this area here. Now this is where the rust I've seen. There's the only spot of rust on the subframe. The rest of it's just like either surface. The rest of it is either. So now the rear subframe is completely stripped. There's no hoses, clamps, brackets, or anything on there. So this is now ready to go for blasting. But before it does, I just want to turn my attention to this little area here. Now this is the only area on the subframe that I've seen that's got any sort of signs of rust. They've got bits around that have got surface corrosion on, but they can clean it quite easily. But this bit here in particular is something to maybe be concerned about. So the subframe itself, the panel goes across here, and then this panel here overlaps. Now what it looks like, the rust has got in between the gap. It's started to lift this panel up, and it's underneath. Now the panel also goes along this way, so I imagine it's probably spot welded along here. So I'm going to give this a quick clean up, and hopefully I can, well, hopefully I'll be able to see what the damage is. There may be a possibility of just cutting this section here out, welding a plate into it, and hopefully that will keep its strength. But we'll only find out when we sort of start cleaning. So let's get cleaning. So as you can see, it looks like we've caught it pretty early on. The top layer seems to have rusted up, but underneath has created a bit of a rust in between, and it's sort of lifted it all. So this sort of step here is actually rust, so I need to try and get that off. So basically to about here, to make sure that that can be flat, and probably cut out and welded a plate in. So we're going to try and save this one. Obviously it's going to go off to the blasters, and hopefully that will not bring out any more nasties. If it does, then we'll have to sort of maybe reconsider what we're going to do. But for now, I'm pretty confident we can just chop out the rot, plate it, and yeah, that will be sort of sufficient for this. And then the rest of it can be cleaned up. But the subframe's getting collected today, so it's all now stripped and ready to go. The rear radius arms I'm going to strip down in another video, and hopefully that's going to be a complete breakdown of how to do that. And yeah, that's pretty much sums up this video. So if you have enjoyed the content, as always, please hit that thumbs up button, comment down below, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on any future content. I'm glad to be working back on the minis, and I've got so much stuff coming up, I don't know when I'm going to find the time to do it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.